she's doing it so good.
That's cool.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's up, everybody? Can you hear me? Can you see me? And did you bring some questions?
You want to see the guys in the bottom there, right?
On YouTube, we can't see them,
Oh, that's right. See you too.
but
That's cool.
we will be able to chat with them.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you feel me? What's going on? Talk to me. Happy Tuesday from the 1SP headquarters. Okay, we got JD in the house.
Let me
Laura-
scream and shout.
Let me scream and shout. We got Laura in the building. Yeah. Oh man, we're going to talk about sim partners today. Sim partners. Where's my phone at? Right there. Identify us.
Yep.
Mohammed. Hello. What's going on, man? Hey, can you hear me, Mohammed? If you can you just put it in chat that you can hear me, please, if you would? Thank you, sir. I can see you in chat. I don't actually see you, though.
Can I hear you? I don't know. Oh, you need this, right? Just in case.
What's that? Oh, the thing?
Yeah, your charger.
It's actually this one.
Which one is it?
Yeah, I got it.
So you already have one. Okay. Which one is this one for?
Well,
This is for the
I'll
other
see
one.
that one over there.
So you don't need this one.
Muhammad says 5 by 5. First and
5
foremost, let me eat this brownie. Now this is a protein brownie, so relax, everybody. No, I just had see, it's lunchtime in Miami, man. So we're having a little protein brownie here. So what's up, man? We're going to talk about sim partners. We got JD in the studio. You want to
Same partners. No, it's all right. Just stay there. You're doing this thing. Just relax. Enjoy life.
Mm-hmm. Ken, what's going on, Ken? Hope you're doing well, man.
Ken Allen.
We're doing a
It would be nice if we can hear.
we're doing a another 737 two-day program.
29 and the 30s, right?
Yeah, September
The
29th.
29 and the 30s. 737 NG.
Yeah.
2 days review.
Mhm.
Systems, automation, auto flights, you name it.
Mm-hmm. We're doing all that.
737 NG. Yep.
All right. Let's get started. Lunchtime, coffee time. You know what they say? If the coffee maker is an operative on the plane, that's a no-go item, sir.
That's true, sir.
Isn't that beautiful?
So sorry. We need to be ready.
Harry, warm regards to you, my friend. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you, Ken. Appreciate you, Muhammad. Appreciate you all that are going to be watching this after the fact. We're just wrapping up lunch, man, because we had a little meeting that ran over, but we're here and we're doing it now. So, hey, man, I want to talk to you guys about sim partners. That's really what I want to talk to you about, is sim partners. And your sim partner can really, you know, I don't want to say they can make or break you, because I don't want to go to that extent, because I don't think that's necessarily true. But they can certainly be a tool. They could be an aid. They can be of a lot of help, or they could be really of no help. In fact, they could be an impediment. They can actually make you turn into not just single pilot, but single pilot having to make sure that they don't mess you up. And that's a lot. That can be tough, particularly when you're learning the plane for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, if you got a lot of hours and experience and whatever, then okay, fine, you can manage it. But it could be a lot.
It can go well, or it could be a disaster.
Yeah, that's how it is. No, really, you know. Now, and I want to share something also with you too. those of you that are going to be doing your type ratings, or maybe you're going to recurrence or what have you, if you have a strong sim partner, like strong to the point that they can really like, and we don't want this to be the case, but they can literally pull the entire session because they're holding you up, basically. That is okay until the instructor or the examiner shuts them down, which has happened several times. You know, where when I'm delivering instruction, we got somebody who's basically not the pilot receiving the training; they're in the pilot monitoring role. And I kind of got to tell him, hey man, if he forgets to set the missed approach altitude, you know, let that go. Leave him be or leave her be, and you know, if he's not calling gear down at the right time, let that go. And because otherwise, you end up never really learning. And the beauty of the sim world, at least the way we run it, is that it should be a forgiving, contained environment. If you're going to make a mistake, make it in the world of training. Make it in the training world, because we can reset the sim. I want you to make the mistakes, and I want you to learn from them in that environment where it's okay to fall. And we're going to pick you right back, and we're going to do it all over again. So that is, in fact, that's preferred, in my opinion, apart from having somebody else hold you the entire way, and then all of a sudden you get to your check ride, and the examiner says, no, we don't want that to happen, and now you find yourself fending for yourself, which you have not been prepared for. And it's uncommon for you usually to rise to the level of expectation. You typically fall to the level of preparation, as I like to say. So it would be wise, obviously, from the instructor standpoint, to be sure that you're being prepared adequately. So look, let me give you some traits of a very good seat support. This is what I would look for if I'm looking for somebody who is not pushing too much or pulling necessarily, but they're just right. Somebody who subtly reminds me about things like setting of the next altitude. Maybe I did forget to set the missed. Okay, maybe they help me out with that. Energy-wise, we're coming inbound and we're 15, 20 miles out, approaching 15 miles out. I like to start slowing from 250 to 210. So maybe we're approaching that threshold and I'm not slowing. You know, maybe suggesting something like, "Hey, speed's our discretion." Yeah. You know. Those kinds of things I really like, having a second set of eyes to get backed up. I don't think at that point it's overbearing, anything to that degree. What could happen is you start to see, let me go the route of the support pilot being too much. They start being the one to call for flaps. They start to be the one to call for gear down. In the case of a 7.3 at 400 feet, we say 400 and we need a vertical, or excuse me, a lateral mode, whether it's heading or LNAV. So maybe they're the ones prompting you for LNAV all the time. They're the ones prompting you for bug up. Right. These are the things basically that if it becomes too much at some point, as an instructor will tone it down, and the examiner will probably just shut it down. The flip side to that is having a seat support pilot
that you don't get any help.
That you don't get any help, or in fact you get good intentions that turned into poor actions. So for example, hey, can you shoot me a line off of this initial approach fix? And instead of drawing a line off of the initial approach fix, which maybe you're in a holding pattern, setting up for another approach, they erase your holding pattern. And now you're left like, oh shoot, I don't have a holding pattern anymore, because they didn't realize to draw a line, you know, you're going to erase a holding pattern or what have you. Of course, that's an instruction that you wouldn't be giving if you're in a holding pattern. But that's one thing that you want to be careful of, is having them do something that perhaps they don't feel 100% confident or proficient doing, and they really put you in a position of you're kind of fall behind because you're at a deficit really in terms of where you should be.
Or on the go around. We see a lot on the go around, right? Send me up to go around. They don't.
Let's say you do go around flaps 15 and they give you flaps 10 instead. You know, or say or maybe you forget to go around flaps 15.
We're hitting.
And you just say go around and they give you flaps 15. That's a positive aid, you know, if they put the flap there for you. But let me give you another example, and I want to go back to the holding one because this is really a big one. If you go out on a mist, which you're going to always do and tight and recurrent, you're going to do a missed approach. Typically, it results in a miss to a publish where there's a holding pattern, particularly on a type ride, because holding patterns are required to establish a type rating. So when you get to this hold and you're setting up for the next approach, one of the things you need to be careful of is that you set it up, but you don't sequence the box. Because if you do, you will delete the holding pattern. And when you delete the holding pattern, you're out of the hold. So now, the airplane's going to revert into control wheel steering in the case of a 7-3. It will go into heading in the case of an A320. And you're going to have to fly the hold from memory as best you can in heading while your pilot monitoring rebuilds the hold for you. And that's just kind of a position that you don't really want to find yourself in because it's undue stress for nothing. And if you have a pilot monitoring or a seat support that's not proficient with doing these tasks in the box, now you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have to kind of babysit what they're doing to make sure they don't put you in that position. Let me give you another example. Those of you that fly the 737 Classic, I know we have a couple of you that watch this channel that fly the 300 and the 400. When you go into your holding pattern, holds in the US from 0 to 6,000 have a speed constraint of 200 knots. So if you're going to fly the hold at 210, which is typical flap up clean maneuvering speed, you're going to want to ensure that you request speed relief in the hold, meaning you want to request 210 knots in the hold. Now, it's typical, particularly on captain upgrade, for the examiner to say, hey, negative, maintain 190 in the hold, which basically forces you into flaps 1. And what they want to see is if you're mindful of the limitations of the plane, because in a classic, 7.3 Classic, we cannot hold with flaps extended in, here's a caveat, in icing conditions. So every time they give you, hey, hold at speed 190, and they deny your speed request for speed relief, you're going to want to check the temperature. Is it below 10 degrees? And am I flying in visible moisture? And if that's the case, you're going to want to decline that clearance simply by rule of limitation. So a great seat support would know the limitations of the plane. In case you accept that, they can back you up and say, oh, actually it's icing conditions and we can't do that. Man, that's a great seat support right there. They just saved you from potentially violating a limitation that would otherwise, obviously, of course, not be a good outcome in an examination scenario. Let's talk now for just a second on the setting up of an unusual attitude. And I talk about this too. Those of you that are, you're going to be setting up your pilot flying. You're the seat support now, and you're setting up the pilot flying in an unusual attitude. And it's either nose up or it's nose down. And the one I want to talk about and spend some time focusing in on in particular is the one that's nose down. With the nose down, unusual attitude, there's only two ways to establish this in the sim. Either A, the instructor gives it to you via a push button, or B, the pilot monitoring, the first officer typically, if it's a PIC type, right, will become the pilot flying temporarily to give you the unusual attitude, at which point you're going to recover. Now, pilot flying, when you recover, or I should back up for just a second. I'll talk about the recovery, but FO, when you give the unusual attitude, something you want to be very, very, very cautious of is that you don't give the pilot flying an airplane with an excessively high speed. In other words, you dive them at 300 knots and then give them control. And the reason you don't want to do that is because pilot flying, when you recover, you're going to do the recovery, which is autopilot off, auto throttle off, thrust levers to idle. You're going to, of course, all automation off, idle thrust in the descent, level the wings, and bring the nose up. When you begin bringing the nose up, you're starting to pull now, right? So you're pulling G's. Simulators do not simulate G loads, otherwise known as GQs. They don't simulate GQs. They simply don't have the ability to, because they would have to spin to do that. So it's possible to overstress the plane. if you have too much speed and you pull up aggressively, which you won't feel, you could overstress the plane and break the wings off. And you won't know it because you don't feel any sensation when you're pulling, but the sim will freeze. And when the sim freezes, obviously, you know, due to aerodynamic load, the wings broke off. And that's why the sim froze. So the way pilot monitoring or sim partner, you can ensure that you don't set up your partner in a situation where they could potentially have a higher risk of snapping the wings off, basically, is to put them in their nose low, unusual attitude and give them control of the airplane at a relatively low speed, certainly not a whole lot faster than 250. The way I set this up typically is I bring the thrust levers to idle. As soon as they give me control to give the other pilot an unusual attitude, I bring the thrust levers back to idle, put the nose down, put them in the bank, give them full thrust so that they have to reduce the thrust in the recovery. But I apply thrust right before I transfer control. And right before I transfer control, by the time they're actually reducing the thrust, there's been such a minimal time that the thrust levers have been up that the engines have barely even gotten time to spool. And as a result, there's really not a whole lot of acceleration happening. Because the engines are not spooling. So really, any acceleration that there is 100% a result of nose down as opposed to thrust advancement. And therefore, when they begin pulling out of that, they're not going to have any, they're going to have a reduced risk of overstressing of the aircraft. So they don't have a reliable inclinometer in the Classic. That's exactly right, Ken. That's exactly what it is. So bad partners are basically ones that are deficient in callouts, deficient in technicalities of the plane, and even deficient in understanding technicalities of the sim. And understanding technicalities of the sim is a benefit that you get when you spend enough time in sims. Because what I just described to you is basically not something that your typical line guy would know or line gal would know, because of course you don't spend that much time in sims, right? But so now you know, deficient in callouts, profiles, and technical aspects. That makes for a weak partner. Best case, you're single pilot. Worst case, you're having to make sure they don't put you in a scenario or in a situation that you don't really want to be in. A strong partner is competent and proficient on the callouts. They know that at 400 feet we need a roll mode so they can back you up. They know that at 1,000 feet we're going to set climb thrust and begin accelerating so they can back you up. They know that the flap retraction comes shortly thereafter. They know that a 2-engine go-around is flaps 15 setting, and they know that a single-engine go-around is flaps 1. They also know when you're cleared for the approach, we arm the approach mode. Or if it's a non-precision, we can go VNAV, LNAV. They know, they have a feeling for profiles, technique, call-out, right? These are the traits of a positive, good, solid sim partner that are definitely going to help you in your training and in your checking. Let's see, Matthew, can I talk about the FMS landing system on the Airbus family? I would, but it's not something I'm familiar with, Matthew, unless there's another term for it. The approaches I can certainly speak to is the APNAV strategy, Cat 3 approaches, Cat 2 approaches, Cat 1 approaches, selected strategy, and maybe track FPA, which is a selected strategy. The FMS landing system, I'm not sure that I've heard of FLS or FMS landing system. Is that for like an ILS or an RNAV, or like the APNAV strategy? We use it for RNAV, VOR, NDB, not localizer, unfortunately. The localizer we typically use loc mode on the FCU and then track FPA, and we go down that way. But I haven't actually quite heard of that. Anyway, maybe you're typing or not, or maybe not. I'll give you some time. While he's doing that, let me share with you that we're doing a couple of things. First, today's Tuesday. On Saturday the 18th, I am running a 10K race. That's 6.2 miles. Now, I'm not much of a runner, frankly, so it's kind of a feat in and of itself that I'm training for this. Those of you that follow YouTube maybe saw a video I put out recently where I was literally running and talking at the same time. So we're raising money there, of which I'm matching with my personal money to donate it to student pilots. So hopefully, I'd love for you to be a part of that, whether it be a contributor or a potential recipient. The link is onestepprep.com/race. Apart from that, we're doing a 2-day 737 course. It's September 29th and September 30th. September 29th and September 30th. Man, we just love to have you. I can tell you, these 2-day programs, it was very typical for us to do it in person pre-COVID, and then since kind of mid-2020, we started doing more of them virtually, and really it's kind of been a good way for us to go about doing it because we can just get to more people that way, you know. Plus we can record it, we can watch it back later, and all that kind of stuff. So definitely hope you guys join us for that. Link to join onestepprep.com/live. Go check it out. Go check it out. Let's see. It is used on all non-precision approaches where the FMS is having an anchor point from the GPS and drawing out a localizer line. FMS draws an anchor point. Yeah, so that, to me, it sounds like that's kind of a method of shooting an approach with VNAV. Because VNAV is pretty similar, right? VNAV basically doesn't track a glide slope. It's a path from airplane down to the runway. I haven't studied too far into this FMS, FLS or FMS landing system, so I'm not going to comment a whole lot on it because I don't want to comment anything that I haven't dug into too much. But to me, it sounds like it's basically from plane to runway, and it's much like a VNAV calculated path. I mean, that's really what I would say. Now, I have seen the ability to fly a localizer approach by simply pushing the approach mode push button. I think maybe that may very well relate to this, but again, I don't have enough intel on it to talk to it very intellectually, you know. So, I did a lot of good stuff going on. I tell you, there's a lot of great news. Some of it I can't share right now, but we will soon. We're working through some final steps to get some things done here. Looking for more expansion. We went to visit some office space this morning to get some additional classroom space. We've been looking at all kinds of different things. Did it minimize on the bottom? Oh, there it is. There it is. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, a lot of exciting things is all I can tell you. Will you bring CRJ, ERJ training into your business? Yes. Yes, we will. We are working right now, Shia, hopefully I'm saying it right. We're going to bring in CRJ. We're going to expand what we currently have on CRJ. We're bringing in Embraer. We're bringing in ATR 767. Basically, we're bringing in the needed resources to expand one-step prep into most airplanes that require a type rating, if not all, over time. But we very much want this to be type rating central, and we have several things I've been working on in the last month or so is putting together the needed resources, time, energy, effort, what have you, to get this done. And our days of, I'm going to continue to do 7.3 and 320 primarily myself, but what I'm saying is you're going to see a lot of fleets added to one-step prep. Veronica from Russia, thanks for the videos. Could you give some advice on type training, like what better to focus on, what to study more, etc.? Sure thing, Veronica. I definitely will address that. What's the difference between a push button and a circuit breaker? A circuit breaker you pull, a push button you push. That's the easiest explanation I can give you. If you see me looking down, by the way, it's because I have a monitor that I'm watching all your comments. So I look up at the camera to talk to you, and then I look down to address all of your questions. All right, love talking to you. By the way, if you want to call in and talk via phone, 786-536-2002 is the number. 786-536-2002. Maybe you can type that, Laura, in the chat box.
Okay.
786-536.
Oh wait, it's like typing. 786.
536-2002. Call the number in the chat. We'll talk on the phone. Veronica. Veronica, right? Yeah, Veronica. Let's talk to her for a second, okay? So, if you're going into type rating training, there's 3 things you need to know. Well, there's really more than that, but there's 3 things primarily that you can start studying on. Memory items, limitations, lights and switches, your systems. In an order of priority, memory items and limitations first, and then lights and switches. The lights and switches is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's typically the overhead panel, top to bottom, left to right. You're going to want to know what the fault lights mean, any auto logic, and probable question, preferred response by the examiner is essentially what we cover on our online programs. So I guess what I'm saying is memory items, limitations, lights and switches, and then definitely check out our videos for the probable questions and the preferred responses. Apart from that, you're going to definitely want to go through profiles, call-outs, and operation of the automation, specifically the mode control panel, MCP, and the FMA, or the flight mode enunciator. Ken, that is correct for the holding speed. Yes. He's got his FARs down. Back course approaches in 7 through 7 Classic, LNAV, or Vorlog, OBS set to front course. Yes, second option. Vorlog with OBS flipped around the opposite way. Unfortunately, there's no back course. So you're going to set the OBS to the front course, like you said, and still use the Vorlog. That's really the only way that I know of to do it. Unfortunately, there is no way to, there's no back course button. Like the CRJ. The CRJ, I think, has a back course button. Unfortunately, the 7.3 doesn't.
Not the classic.
Yeah, so it is what it is. But what else? What other questions we got, man? Woo! Laura's in here like, why is he screaming? Let me get a little Instagram video here. This is so much fun, dude. This is just, I love doing this stuff with you guys. We're live
In the 305.
on YouTube. Right?
Yes, sir.
Laura's like, why do you scream so much? Okay. Laura's running our production. Everybody say hi. Love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Ken, man. How's the 7.3 going for you? We have Ken here in person. Live in person. We got our one-step prep hats in stock. We got to restock the crew tags, though. Would you guys rock some crew tags? We still have our wristbands. We got those in stock. Tips on how to prepare for my 121 regional training coming up in December. Shia or Shea, 100%.
How to prepare in advance.
Get the type rating playbook to success.
Of course, that's what we had the video.
That's what you want. That's the first thing you want.
Aircraft
The second thing you want is the 121 airline operations. If you have never flown in a 121 environment, let me share with you, Shaya Patel, what's going to happen. You're going to become an expert on your plane. You're going to go to the airplane, you're going to push back on the plane, you're going to have an igniter fault, at which point you're going to require maintenance, you're going to require a contact dispatch, you're going to require a flight crew deferral, you're going to require an amendment to your original release, and if all these terms that I just said you're not familiar with, you need the 121 operations program. And I'm speaking from experience because when I got to my first 121, after flying 135 cargo, I had that scenario, and they said, contact dispatch to get us an amendment. And I said, that sounds good. How do I do that, and what does that mean? So you definitely want to know that. I would study the playbook, onestepprep.com/playbook. I would study memory items limitations like the switches and the 121 airline operations. Alejandro, what's going on, man?
Alejandro Bernard.
Let's see. Dual FMGC failure on a 320. You're having a bad day. Go buy a lottery ticket. That's what I would tell you. Ken, the way the back course logic works in a 7.3 is pretty much the way it would work on a 172. So you're going to set the frequency, hit the Vorlok button, and dial in the reciprocal on your OBS. And that's really the only way that I know. And it basically tracks it in reverse because of putting the reciprocal bearing on the selector, on the OBS. That's the only way really to do it. Now, I will tell you this though, Ken, I don't think you will ever fly a back course approach in the 7.3, although maybe I'm totally wrong and you know, you've done one already in your career, but I've never done a back course approach on a transport category jet.
A320 question. A320 question.
Speed or pitch, thrust. A320 question: are the flight directors controlled by speed or pitch or thrust? I'm really confused. You know, it's funny you asked this. I just did a 1 hour.
That's what I was going to say. I just finished doing that right now.
I just did a 1 hour ground school privately with somebody who got hired at a major U.S. carrier. He's in initial new hire training, and he had the same exact question.
Yep.
Literally. So the answer really is it depends, because the flight directors can give you guidance for speed. They can give you guidance for pitch. They can give it. It's not dependent on the flight director. It's dependent on the FMA mode. So really, what I would advise there is to have a good understanding of the FMA modes. Am I in a fixed thrust mode? Am I in a variable thrust mode? And basically, to answer your question in a nutshell, your flight director bars will command a pitch attitude to maintain a constant pitch or to maintain a constant speed. And it depends on the FMA modes. So
we have everything in British, right?
Yeah, it's what I would tell you, Elec NG, are you part of our A320 video program online? Because if you go there, there's a good 20 hours that talks about all kinds of stuff, of which about 2 hours is dedicated just to that. New non-precision approach for the airplane, draw a pseudo ILS for you to follow. Yeah, so that to me sounds like it's kind of like a VNAV function, basically. It's kind of like a VNAV function on the 7.3 to shoot approaches, where we have a glide path, not so much a slope, but a path, basically going from airplane down to runway as opposed to runway up to plane. So Laura is dropping the link in the chat for the A320 program, just in case any of you that don't know. She's going to drop it in there for you guys. What else, man? What other questions we got? Let me expand a little bit, Elec NG. Yeah, planning to join as soon as possible. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely, man. I would love for you to, you know, because it's very, look, the last thing I want you guys to do really is, I want any pilot to do, is go through training and feel like they are alone. And I say that because the guy that I did the ground school with this morning, he's at a major U.S. carrier.
Should we say the airline? No.
We should not.
No.
But when I say major, think about American, Delta, United.
One of those three, right?
Okay. You think, you're like, oh man, their training must be everything. Well, it still leaves a lot to be desired. And this is, an observation, you know, that we've had, not from just one particular carrier. It's really all of the carriers. It's a self-study CBT tragedy.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, people that have enrolled with us here, and there's a handful of you that are in the chat, I know. Just send me an email. Oftentimes I get back to those. I get back to text messages as soon as I can. But the last thing I want is for people to feel like they have nobody to talk to, because that's how I felt when I went through type rating training.
A320.
That's why I'm so passionate about it. I felt alone.
What is the procedure in case of both flight directors fail? A320.
What is the procedure in case flight director 1+2 fault for A320? Nothing. Fly raw data. If you have a dual flight director fault, you know, you're going to fly manually.
They could have
which to me sounds like you're going to have that's a dual FMGC failure. Flight management guidance computer. You can still fly, you know. Yeah. It's just kind of a pain because you don't have any flight director guidance. But yeah, there is no QRH that I know of for it. So that's probably why you didn't find it. Fully managed VOR approach. Does following the brick give proper 3 degrees? Following the brick gives you whatever is published for that approach. It might be 3 degrees. It might be 3.5. It might be 4. It might be 3.2. So whatever is, it'll give you 3 degrees to the final approach fix. And then from the final approach fix inbound, it will give you whatever that approach is coded at, which could be 3.2, 3.5, or 4, depending upon the airport that you're going into. What else? What else we got? What else we got? Are any of you instructors? And if you are, would you like to receive the AX3 certification? Let me tell you what the AX3 certification is, okay? We are expanding our instructors here beyond the Juan and Joe show. And one thing that is crucial is that we maintain, number one, the values that the instructors have, which start with you, the student, and two, the method of instruction. This system is basically meant to standardize instructors. And we have the AX3 instruction manual and the certification, which is basically a 2-day program where we talk about the magic of the 1SP way. And it's really a lot of focal points on values, and then later on attention, grabbing it, retaining it, delivering instruction, keeping audience engagement, that kind of thing. So any of you that do want to teach, maybe you want to work with us, I don't know, send me an email. You know, send me a message, drop it in chat, drop your email in the chat. You know, we'll reach out and we'll make sure we get you on board on this thing. All right. What other questions we got? We'll wrap it up here. We've been on for about 40 minutes or so. And until the next one. Until the next one. Any last minute items? OneStepPrep.com/live. September 29th and 30th. We'll see you there. OneStepPrep.com/live. 2 days. 16 hours. But Joe, I can't go because I'll be on the road. That's okay. We'll get you the recorded. We'll get you the recorded. Shaya, thanks for answering. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you all. Man, we really do. I can't even begin to tell you how much we appreciate you. Sending in your comments, your feedback, your comments on the channel. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Even the negative ones, man. You don't like what we do. Good. Go ahead. Post it. Let us know. Joe has too much energy. He drinks too much coffee, and he needs to gel his hair better. Good! Put that in the comment, and let me know that I gotta stop drinking coffee. All right, we love you guys, man. God bless you. We'll see you in the next stream, all right?